Hello, everyone. My name is Younas, and welcome to the vFairs Events podcast. Here we chat with the best in the events industry to uncover trends, share best practices, and explore what makes events truly unforgettable. If you want to stay ahead in the world of events, hit subscribe and join the conversation. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Anca to the podcast. Anca is a seasoned event technology strategist with over 20 years of experience driving innovation in the events industry. Welcome, Anca, to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Younas. It's a pleasure to be here.
Anca, you have over 20 years of experience. Can you take us back to the beginning? How did you get started in the industry, and what are you currently working on that excites you the most?
Do you want the short story or the long story?
We can do both. Let's start with the summary, and then I think we'll dig deep into each one of those things as well.
All right, awesome. Well, I started in radio throughout high school and college, and I became someone famous in radio back in Romania. So famous that my parents are still getting letters.
Nice.
Oh, it was fun. But what's important about that beginning in my career, because honestly at the time I wasn't really doing anything AV related or production related, but I was studying computer science. I graduated in computer science. But the radio was the catalyst that pushed me into this new world, and that was AV production. And I wanted to actually learn more about it. I wanted to intern at a local production company, and I was told that I should go and get married instead and have kids like all the other women my age do. And I was like, that's not my life plan. Maybe eventually, but right now, that's not what I want to do. So one thing led to another. I created this plan for myself to find opportunities somewhere else. And that was moving to US. And there's this long story short where I ended up in US. From the East Coast, I worked enough to make enough for another airplane ride to the West Coast, because I figured that's where Hollywood is. That's where events are. That's where production happens. I didn't really connect two and two together that events happen anywhere and everywhere, right? So to me, I'm like, that's where, the celebrities are. So there must be need for production. So I ended up in LA, and at first, nobody wanted to pay attention to this, immigrant girl. I was speaking English pretty decently, but obviously with an accent, that wanted to learn AV production. I'm like, why? Like, why can't you learn anything else out there, right? And I decided to first go to school. I went to a community college while I was also working part-time, just trying to make ends meet. And I learned sound engineering, I learned lighting design and recordings. I figured, okay, at least that will give me enough knowledge to be able to have a conversation when the time comes to have an interview. My goal was like to start from the ground up and learn. And that was what I was really advocating for. Just give me a chance and I will prove myself, but just give me a chance. And someone eventually, gave me that chance. And this is a person that I still consider one of my best friends and mentors in AV. And funny enough, we are working together on an event for the end of the year. So, this is like 20 something years later. And it's like those people that you get to meet, right, that really change your life trajectory. So Ian Ingram of All Stage Pro from Southern California, thank you for taking a chance on me. He's one of my best friends and one of my mentors in the industry. And I started working in his warehouse, basically managing the warehouse of gear, and everything that would come in and leave the warehouse wouldn't go unless it passed through me. And that gave me the opportunity to learn everything that there is to learn about equipment. And now you'd be, wondering, well, why would you care to know equipment? Well, the equipment that gets sent on site is what makes events happen. And if you know how to put two things together and you know how things work, then you're going to be able to figure out, once you're on site, how to troubleshoot, how to make things happen. So that was my way to learn from the ground up, coiling cables, learning and troubleshooting every piece of equipment in that warehouse, and then eventually learning, hands-on how to mix, how to video switch, how to set up lighting and design lighting plots and all of that. And many, many years later, after doing all of that, I moved from this, rock and roll um, fun lifestyle in LA, where I was doing a lot of celebrity fashion shows and concerts, and a very hard life, to be honest, if you're a woman in AV. I moved into the corporate world because I figured, well, that's a little easier and it's a little cleaner, and you don't have to, like get dirty, like loading trucks and pushing them through the mud and whatever, any place, anywhere, back of venue somewhere. So I got into corporate events, and I started doing a lot of fundraising galas, anything that was corporate in nature, conferences, summits, anything that also needed AV support. You always need AV if you're in a venue, right? If you're in some kind of a space. And I also transitioned more into a technical event planner. It was this title that I kind of gave myself because I couldn't figure out, well, what exactly am I doing? I mean, technically, I was the production liaison between the client that needed someone to support their AV technical needs and the company that I was working for that was providing those services. But I wanted to do it in a way that's not salesy, in a way that is approachable, in a way that doesn't make the event planner feel like they're stupid just because they don't speak the AV language, while also being useful to the AV team, as I was one of them, but advocating for the client and their needs while also creating revenue. So it's a very interesting place when you put yourself between those two worlds, right? Because I was part, like one leg in each one of those. From there, eventually I started my own agency to do exactly that and partner with a lot of partners that I've built relationships over the years, then to support my own events and then bring them on to provide services, anything from AV production to technology or whatever the need was for a lot of the events that I did before COVID. And then COVID hit, and then we moved full-fledged into virtual events. That was kind of like when we connected first, we were talking about, I'm like, Younas, actually, I use vFairs quite a bit during COVID, like 2020, 2021, I think even 2022, we were still running this large symposiums for some of my pharma clients, and the event planner that I was working with and the agency that I was working with at the time, where we were putting on those events, they needed a platform that was solid and also had the ability to track a lot of those CMEs, which is basically educational credits for health professionals. And we were able to do that really well through vFairs. And I remember even building for the first time, the event in vFairs and having, the virtual room where we brought everyone in, and you had the trade show, and then it's kind of like recreating this event only in a, in a digital format. So that was kind of like my story into AV. And then a few years ago, what happened? There's always something exciting happening in our world, right? AI came on the forefront, I guess, of our life, because AI, machine learning, deep learning, it's been around for many years. I mean, there's companies like Netflix and Amazon that have been using machine learning to predict our behaviors for many, many years. And we kind of like knew that it's there, but we didn't really like connect it to our life. We knew someone is listening or they're learning about us, right? They're using all these data points so that they can make our life easier. Because now if I go on Netflix and I want to watch a show, it's going to be very much personalized to my interests versus a bunch of shows out there that make no sense for me. So AI I got into AI when ChatGPT first came out. 2022 was it? September, October, something like that. And I was like, "Oh, what is this thing? Like, okay, large language model. What does it mean? What can it do?" And I loved the idea to be able to interact with a bot and be able to tell it something and for it to talk back in its own way, right? And I think that kind of takes me back in my days of like, even as a fifth grader, when I got on the internet for the first time, and there was no Facebook, there was no social, there was like those are some of those like backdoor milk channels that we would communicate with people from all over the world without my parents knowing, obviously. uh, and that to me was kind of like this opening into what the World Wide Web was going to be and what social networking was going to be. So talking to this bot was like, oh my gosh, this is the next thing. This is important. So I put a lot of energy just learning everything there could be about.
Yeah. Anca, just on AI, and again, see, as we all know, it has a lot of buzz around it. It has also some really great real world applications of how it can be used. Given that you're hands-on, you're someone who actually run events, what are some real world applications of AI in events that you have seen being successfully implemented? I think the first, we all know that when it comes to the event content creation piece, just because ChatGPT exists, we see almost everyone at least making a use of it somehow or the other, whether to come up with ideas or to actually even generate content and so forth. But other than that, can you give me like one or two more just real world applications of AI being used in events in journal?
Yeah, I mean, there's more than two, I promise you. But you're right. Like, the low-lying fruit is use ChatGPT to get some ideas for some, either agenda, um, uh, or for content or whatever. Other tools, for research, I use Perplexity, Gemini, just for research purposes. When it comes to video generation, I think one of the things that they're not very used, especially when it comes to events, is repurposing of content with some of the AI tools that are already there, right? I, for example, use HeyGen to create my video AI avatar that can introduce a session, or it can introduce like even a podcast. You can have an AI avatar that can train your entire team on your processes, so you don't have to. You just need a script and an avatar. Captions. I just came from this user conference, and they were using Voxel. This is a technology that basically it takes in every single one of their session rooms. It would basically take an audio input, may that be a microphone input or just the voice if it was parked close enough to where the speaker was, and it would create a summary and key takeaways in a PDF format and then a LinkedIn social format to share. And once your session was over, that was done and ready and shared to your inbox in 30 seconds. So now that you were just done with your Q&A for your session, and I was a speaker there, I was like, I got my email. I'm like, I can share this content like right away, right now. And all the key takeaways, all the, the summary was there. And I also had the slides that I literally had the graphics to share. I mean, if that is not instant and amazing, I don't know what else is. Now, when it comes to, again, AI powered content repurposing, I don't know why a lot of teams don't use like Opus AI, the script AI. There's so much that can be used with those clips from your conference that you can create engagement even past conference just by using the tools that are already there. Pictory AI, there's so many. And then I don't know if we have time to get into like pre or post production, but like if you're an Adobe user, there is AI embedded in every click. And if you use Premiere Pro, if you use Final Cut Pro, if you use DaVinci Resolve, whatever you use for your editing, that already has AI power tools like auto frame and scene edits and detections and smart confirmation. And like everything is so AI ready. I don't even know why I would need to know color correction anymore.
Anca, it looks like, of course, you are hands-on and you I don't know, use tons of these AI tools. Do you see that as a common practice across a lot of event professionals? Like, do you see other event professionals using as many AI tools as you are using? And if not, what's that one piece of advice you would give to someone of where to start from? Because again, as you know, these things can be a bit overwhelming to, someone who's not as tech friendly as you are.
I think what you can do is start with your expertise. Like you might not be a video editor, like I have no desire to be a video editor, but you are a marketer. What do marketers do? Well, they have to create marketing um, pieces, and that could be your go-to then to use a tool, like I said, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. Pick your poison and do the research necessary. I look at AI as a support tool, not a replacement. So that is not to say that a human element and the human expertise is not necessary. Yes, AI can do the heavy lifting, but what is necessary is for the human touch to still be there. So if you're going to create a piece of content, just because you got it straight out of ChatGPT, don't just send it out as an email blast or a newsletter blast or I don't know, like to your attendees. Make sure that there is a human reading that and reading it out loud. Does this sound like a human? Like many times, I would get a piece of content that I have an idea, I spit it into ChatGPT and I say, okay, here's what I'm thinking. I want this to be turned into a LinkedIn post, and I input my thoughts, right? That is a great tool to frame my thoughts in a organized manner, concise manner that actually makes sense for someone to read it. But even then, I would go back and I'm looking, okay, make sure that this sounds like me. I think too many people, they're just relying on AI tools without first training it how to sound like the person. I've spent several different times, depending on which tool I'm using and depending on which model of the tool that I'm using, to input it data and things that I have written myself over the years, either blog formats, newsletters, you name it. And I would have it analyzed for tone, for voice, for the way I sound to make sure that then the output matches that. That's a step number one that you should be doing. And when it comes to what tools, I would look at your workflow. What are some of the things that you do every single day? And if there's something that you do constantly, like if there's this button that you constantly push every single day to let your team knows that one task was done, is there a way to automate that? Is there a way to create a flow, a flow that takes that one particular, task and it turns it into a trigger so that you send that email, now your team got the update, and now they have to do this, but that is already automated on the back end as a workflow or some kind of a integration that can do that. And then I would look at things that AI could help to give you some time back. Like when I was looking at my production time spent on my podcast, just give an example because we are on a podcast. And I realized that I spent over an hour just crafting, and by the way, kudos to your team for actually having a nice list that was sent for us as a guideline. Hey, here's some of the things that you guys could be talking about, right? I don't think we're on the guideline anymore, but still, like I would spend an hour doing research on my guests and finding out what they're passionate about, what are some of the things that they would want to talk about, and then formulate the questions around that, kind of like how your team probably had the same process. Now, sure, you can have a VA do all of that for you. You can have your assistants do that. At one point, I was like, I don't have the time to do all of it, and my VAs are busy doing other things. How about I create a fully automated podcast bot that takes that information from the input form and automatically crafts this one pager of the bio, the intro, the, you know, questions, potential questions that, or topics that we could be discussing, an outline maybe. And it does it with the click of a button. All I have to do is say, hey, generate a outline for Anca. And he knows who Anca is because it's connected on the back end to my spreadsheet, which is connected to my input form. And then he pulls that information through several API integrations and an app creation. And then all I do is just chat with it, right? So solutions, I think, are what we're looking for, but for a solution to become a solution, you have to know what is the problem you're trying to solve. So I would look at your environment, at your workflow, and see what is the challenge that I'm having and what is one problem that I'm trying to solve, and then try to find a solution for that.
Thank you so much. We'll discuss just one follow-up question on that one, but before that, just some rapid fire questions for you. Virtual, hybrid, or in-person events, which one is your prefer? Which one is your favorite and why?
I think there's still place for hybrid events. I know our industry kind of moved back to in person, but again, coming back from this one conference that I was at just last week, they were doing some form of hybrid. Yes, there's different level of hybrid events, but at a minimum, I think streaming your main stage or streaming some of the sessions to an audience that cannot be there in person, I think we can do at least that. I think we can provide that window into a conference via streaming so that someone feels like even though they might not afford to come to this conference, they might not be able to take time off, they might not be able for so many different reasons to partake in, the amazing experience that is to be in person with people. They still want to, to know what's going on there. Providing an opportunity to stream parts of that conference, I think it's so important. So definitely hybrid. Let's keep doing that because I don't see the downsides of doing that, aside from obviously there's a little bit of a cost, but there's ways to work around that and bring in more sponsorships, pay for that AV additional fee.
One event tech tool that you cannot live without.
Well, I cannot live without my calendar. I don't think if that's an event per se tool, but it's a tool. I mean, without my calendar, I'd be dead, lost. I'd have no life. And then to connect that to an AI tool, I also have this tool that it's called Reclaim. And is embedded into my calendar. And what it does, it actually it builds certain blocks of time and habits based on certain things that I give it as priority. So like if going to the gym daily is a priority for me, then within the crazy busy calendar that I run, it makes sure that it finds those an hour and a half or 2 hours that I need to be able to get myself to the gym and back. If I want to spend time with my kids, even then is when it builds a habit and it says, okay, you have 4 hours on Saturday afternoon. And it's funny because my kids know to come and look at my calendar, be like, so I see there's some time there where you put down for us to go to the mall. I'm like, that's right. That's my habit builder right there. I think I'm a very simple person, but definitely calendar, Reclaim, ChatGPT. Those are my go-to right now. I don't know what else I need to make life complicated.
You, of all the events that you attend in the industry, or you have attended from the industry, which one is your favorite? What's that one event that...
A couple of years back, I went to this Connect Marketplace event that was in Puerto Rico. And it was just such a great experience. I think it was very close to like when we were able to travel again after COVID. So it might have been 2022, maybe 2023, whenever it opened, where we were doing in-person association and large events again. And it just, I think maybe it was like the whole context of being in person again. It just felt like everything was right. And even though some things were not, it didn't matter because it was just like you are in an amazing location with some amazing people. And what else would you ask for? So that's still like top of list. And then there's a lot of other events. I mean, IMAX is definitely top of list for me, a lot of IMAX events. But I don't know, that one has just this feeling of, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're back in person and we're able to do this again. Like, how grateful am I right now?
And if you could plan an event anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
That's a hard one because first off, I wouldn't necessarily have the full knowledge. What is it like to plan an event, say, in South America or Patagonia or Asia or Africa? But I would love to go in some places that I haven't been before and just figure it out. I think more than anything is the experience of being in a new place. But then I think that also comes with a lot of challenges. I've I have had this whole season on my podcast called Event About It. And we would bring on event professionals talking about some of the event happenings that are happening to everyone, right? And they were talking about being in some, remote location in a different country or dealing with, destinations that they've never visited before and the challenges of that or even cultural challenges. So that comes to mind like, yes, and it could be a great experience, but be prepared for some of the things that you don't know about, because what you don't know, you don't know. And just give enough, I guess, space for planning and for the event to happen without having to run from thing to thing to thing or having like strict, deadlines. Because if you have to wait on someone to deploy a solution for you and you're in a country that they're like, well, our time is like whenever we wake up. I'm like, what do you mean? It's not a.m. It's whenever I wake up, right? That might be difficult.
When you sign up for events, are you a fan of short registration form? Something like name, email, and purchase a ticket, or are you okay with a long form so that your experience is much more personalized? Which one do you prefer?
I think first off, when you're collecting information, that type of information on your reg forms, you should know why you're collecting that, and it should have a purpose. Just collecting for the sake of collecting without doing anything with that, I think it's it's can be very frustrating for the attendee. Because I don't want to be going through pages and pages and not understand like why are you curious about my interest in I don't know, gardening. I'm not interested in gardening, but I don't know, right? Totally irrelevant to what we're doing right now. Maybe if you were to make the case and say, hey, we're putting together this amazing activation and it has some matchmaking part of it, and we just are curious to know, what is your take on carrots versus tomatoes, that would make sense. I'm like, oh, okay, so I understand. That's why they're actually, this might be fun. Okay, let's see. I don't know, like, let's go with carrots, whatever. But without an actual purpose, I think short form any anytime, because who's got time to go through like I've given up on registration forms before because I realized that I'm like literally 3 pages in and there's still 7 to go, and I'm like, no thanks, I'm done, bye.
Perfect. And what's the biggest event trend? What's the biggest event trend that you see shaping in the future?
Trend, I think it would have to be something that it's 100% AI embedded. May that be AI agents, Optimus agents, platforms that actually have real AI matchmaking. If we can figure out in which in some ways in which all those pieces of technology could seemingly and smoothly integrate and pull data points and share data points from one another without having to pull a leg just to do that, I think that would be super important. AI or not, I think that's where we're at right now. Like, you don't need more technology. What we need is more integrated technology, right? So like whatever it is, like even simple things, like what would make my life easier right now. If I'm busy doing my hair in the morning, I just want to be able to talk to my phone and say, "Hey Google," or whatever, Gemini, Bixby, whatever. Can you send this email and this email and this email? Just talk to it. Talk to the technology the same way how I would talk to ChatGPT, but hands free. Like, I don't always have my hands available to do all the things, respond to everything, like integrating it in a way that it's not annoying, like Alexa in your face. What did you ask about? I'm like, I didn't ask you anything. Go away. But in a way that is possible to do it, like an assistant, like a very helpful assistant that will help me be more productive and more efficient and even faster if there's a way in everything that I do. I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
As an attendee, when you go and attend event, what's your take on swags? Do you like the idea of exhibitors having swags? Do you think that they even work? They have the ROI that an exhibitor is looking for when they are, coming up with those swags?
I think that's a tricky question. I mean, there's the sustainability uh, side to this, like how much of the swag that we give away or we as attendee live with ends up in the landfill. How much of it is it really necessary or we could do without? How many bottles of water do I actually need? I am not necessarily a fan of useless and same old swag. Now, again, coming from another event the week prior that I was at, like the cutest things they had, like there was like this table full of very event focused funny stickers. Yes, I'm a sticker lover. I picked quite a few and I could have picked even more because there was like no end of where I could put stickers on all those bottles that I left with from other events. Little things like that. That was something that was actually really fun. Or a pair of Crocs. I know some people have hard feelings about we don't like Crocs. Crocs are the worst looking shoes ever. It doesn't matter. That was actually super cute. Like there was a pair of Crocs that you could win at one of those like drop-in, like the disc and whatever it lands. Um, like something fun, something useful. I actually did wear my Crocs this morning because it was cold in the house. I made use of my swag, right? How many of those bottles and T-shirts? Oh, and let's not talk about how many shirts I brought home that I end up like doing nothing with and not like throwing away. Um, I think make it impactful and intentional. Know your audience, know what they might be into. Um, Little things like, for example, if you're a parent, I need to get a gift to my kid after a conference. And I would rather not have to buy that thing in the airport because we all know how awful those, gifts are and how expensive. So if your swag is something that makes a parent's day by not having to buy like a Lego set, like a squishy, like, I don't know, like squeezable. I mean, there's so many of those nowadays, right? Like little things like that. I'm all for it because you just made my life easier and I don't have to go and spend $50 on this little squishable that my kids will love, but then it's going to get lost in the sea of squishables that they have that I don't know how many more do they need at this point.
Anca, thank you so much. Those were some brilliant ideas about the swags. I know that our team is listening to this, and again, I'm sure like they will come up with better swags which can make a Parents' Day. I totally agree with you. When I go to events, I have to bring something back for my daughters, and then I'm the one who's picking things from, again, the swags that can.
That we've all done it. We've all done it.
Anca, just one last question before we conclude. Anyone who want to learn a bit more about you, where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
I post a lot of AI related topics, news, insights on my LinkedIn page. I actually have several buckets that I purposefully put my content in. So like on Monday, I talk about AI news. On Tuesday, I talk about women in AV. On Wednesday, I talk about wellness strategies and fit for events. Thursdays is more technology, trends and whatnot. And then Friday would be an update about either personal life, myself, or the podcast. So if you're curious about any of those 5 buckets that I've listed, then connect with me on LinkedIn, Anca Platon Trifan, and that gives you everything that you need, because that also has links to my other pages and my website and whatnot. So I hope that is helpful.
Thank you, Anca. Guys, follow Anca on LinkedIn. Again, I have gone through her content. It's absolutely amazing and something every event professional can benefit from. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, everyone, for listening into the show. Again, if you want to keep on learning things from event professionals like Anca, subscribe to the podcast. We'll be back with the next episode, in a short amount of time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anca, so much.